long journey, but it's been a great journey. It's been worth it. We put ourselves in position to win the NBA Finals. And after winning 15 games in our first year here, to some years not making the playoffs, to 3 years, the last 2 years thinking we had a chance, and we just didn't do enough. And now we're here. This is what you watch the playoffs for. This is like all the moments that I felt as a little kid watching TV. I lived them and went through them. And now I get to go to the finals and see what this is about.
We have the pieces. We got the talent. We got guys that you see we can do it, and you see the flashes that we can do it. It's hard. This is hard as hell, and it's not easy. They've been here multiple times before and haven't been able to take that next step. And I think for us, being able to go through this for a first time early. It's really good for us. I think it'll only help us.
We talked about shocking the NBA. I think this group this year, they did shock the NBA with their sacrificing and their commitment to each other, the trust that they showed, the work that they put in to get to this point.
And that guy's got a bag coming. Without Giannis, a collective effort for the Bucks to close out the series. They had 6 players in double figures, made 17 threes, the most they've made since Game 2 of the first round. You saw Trae Young. He gave it a go, but he struggled in his return. He shot just 4 for 17 from the floor, 0 for 6 from 3. It was the only game this postseason in which he did not make a three-pointer. And the Bucks are in the finals for the 3rd time in franchise history, and the first time since 1974 when they lost to the Celtics in 7 games. Milwaukee will be looking to capture its 2nd NBA title.
All right, for even more perspective, we bring in Tim Legler here to SportsCenter. And Tim, the reason that the Bucks are going back to the NBA Finals for the first time in 47 years is largely due to Chris Middleton and what he did in that 3rd quarter specifically, scoring 23 of his game-high 32 points. How was he able to do that?
Yeah, well, listen, Mike, no Giannis Antetokounmpo and a limited Trae Young. So you look at these 2 rosters and you say, who's the most accomplished offensive player? It's Chris Middleton by a mile. And he's a guy that's had these explosive outbursts over the last 2 postseasons, really.
First, just congratulations to Atlanta, Coach McMillan, his players, hell of a season, amazing. Yeah! It's sweet. These guys have put the work in all year. They deserve to go to the finals. I couldn't be more proud of them. I love coaching them, and we got more work to do.
Yes, the work continues, and the Bucks have not messed around this postseason with a chance to clinch. They're now 6-0 with a chance to wrap up playoff series under Coach Bud. Now, Mike Budenholzer himself now 9-2 in clinch opportunities. That's the 2nd best mark all time, behind only Ty Lue. The Bucks have not won a title since 1971. This will be their first trip to the finals since 1974. Milwaukee fell to the Celtics in 7 games that year, anchored, of course, by Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Oscar Robertson in the final season of his Hall of Fame career. This finals means so much to both the Bucks and the Suns. No player on either team has ever won an NBA championship. Kevin, that stat is crazy to me. This marks the first NBA Finals where no players have previous rings since all the way back in 1977 when the Blazers played the Sixers. So now the Bucks have an opportunity to get some rings on those fingers. We now welcome in NBA analyst Tim Legler. And I want to start not about the start of the game or the finish of the game. It was about a 3rd quarter by Chris Middleton, something that just was stunning to watch in this game. What did you think about that 3rd quarter performance, Legs?
Yeah, he took over the game. I mean, look, the Milwaukee Bucks understand the pressure that will be associated with a Game 7 at home. And you get that sense Phoenix went through the same thing. It's the last thing you want to experience because the pressure to make shots in that situation can be overwhelming for some guys. So Chris Middleton, I think, sensed that coming out of the locker room in that 3rd quarter. We've seen this from him throughout the last couple of postseasons. He has an explosive scoring ability that's really right up there with anybody else in the NBA when he gets rolling because the mid-range is his bread and butter. But when he starts feeling it from deep, the way that you have to guard him changes, and he's so good and so shifty at getting you off balance once you have to guard him at 25 feet. It sets up every other aspect of his game, and I just thought he showed great killer instinct in that 3rd quarter. When you look at this matchup, no, Trae Young clearly limited, no Giannis. Well, who's the next most proven offensive commodity in this series? Clearly, it's Chris Middleton. And then the next guy is probably Drew Holiday, and then the next guy after that is probably Brook Lopez. So all of that talent on the part of the Milwaukee Bucks, that's what you're counting on if you're Mike Budenholzer. Somebody has to get hot. Chris Middleton was the most likely guy, and he showed an incredible aggressive instinct in that third quarter to basically end this game.
Yeah, so one player having the game of his life, the other just wasn't able to step up and really be healthy in the most important moment of his life. That's Trae Young. And you mentioned he was limited. He really just did not look 100% at any point in this game. What did you think about his performance and what he tried to do, at least in this game?
I give him a lot of credit for even going out there because the player himself knows more than anybody else what you really feel like when you're warming up before the game. And you know what percentage of yourself you're going to be. And he was just a small fraction of what he normally is. And for me, where I saw it early on, he was so reluctant to pull the trigger on his jump shot because he just didn't know if he had the separation and lift off the dribble. Because if you think about the way Trae Young scores from the perimeter deep, it's typically off the dribble, and it's a lot of step-back threes. Well, to get that step-back three going to your left, which he loves to shoot, that means you're pushing off with that right foot. And you could just see, whenever he would go and get ready to go into that move, and you're thinking he's going to let it fly, he would not want to go ahead and take that shot because he just couldn't get off the ground, and he couldn't separate enough from the defender in his own mind to give himself clearance that he could get that shot off. He had some drives, had a couple of floaters, but the Bucks knew he was one-dimensional player. Once you knew that he was not going to be able to do damage from beyond the three-point line and you could just funnel him into the paint the entire game, it just changed everything for Trae Young's night. So you feel terrible for him. The year that he had, the postseason run that he had, to have his season basically end on a fluke injury where he steps on an official's foot, you feel sick for him, really, in this moment. But give him credit. He wanted to gut it out. He did not want to be sitting on the sideline in case this was his team's last game. He went out there. He gave it his all, Ashley, but he just was clearly just nowhere near what they needed him to be offensively. And I think it demoralized them a little bit as a group because they knew he was going to be out there, but he just wasn't the same guy. And as a result, they were ripe for the picking, and Chris Middleton took advantage of that.
Yeah, so much respect for him for really putting everything out there. Hockey tough, playing injured in the finals, you know what I mean? But just a great performance. This team has so much to be positive of. Legs, we'll talk to you a little bit later, but I do want to get to that and what this team has to look forward to because one team has to move on and the other going home. Plenty for this Hawks team to really be excited about. They made a coaching change with Nate McMillan halfway through, and they earned the 5 seed in the East. Then, after beating the Knicks and Sixers, they became just the 4th team in the past 40 seasons to make the Eastern Conference Finals with a midseason coaching replacement. So a lot to be excited about down in Atlanta.
No doubt. Hawks Bucks Game 5 tonight. The Bucks will be losing a lot of production with the absence of Giannis as the Greek Freak is averaging 28 points, just under 13 rebounds, along with 5 assists in these playoffs. He will be the 10th All-Star to miss time this postseason. Trae Young also questionable to play tonight. The 22-year-old averaging just under 30 points, 10 assists this postseason. Talk about production. Max Kellerman. Yeah. Max, which star return is more important for their respective team in advancing in this series?
The answer is Giannis. I mean, I just saw no Giannis, no Trae Young. What happens? The Hawks won. The Hawks won because Lou Will can do an impersonation of Trae Young. He's a real good scorer, and he was even dishing some assists because Bogdanovich can play, because they have guys, Herter can play, and they have guys who are stepping up. That is not what, look, the Bucks were supposed to have the 3rd and 4th best player in this series. Giannis and Trae Young are the 2 best, and the 3rd and 4th best player were supposed to be Middleton and Drew Holiday. That has not always been the case. The reason, Stephen A., they're not perennial all-stars is because they're not usually great. They are sometimes great. They're usually good, sometimes great. And without Giannis, those 2 especially need to step up. But what happened? Middleton drops 38, looks like MJ one game, and the next night Cam Reddish shuts him down? Can't happen. But it's what happened. Giannis, Stephen A., could have just won his 3rd MVP. The only reason he didn't, because he put up the same numbers he did in back-to-back seasons when he won MVP, is because got a little fatigue giving him back-to-back awards, and we also what happened in the postseason. And that kind of got held against him, because he had the same season 3 years in a row. He is normally a more effective player even than Trae Young, and that's saying a lot. And they need him now more than ever.
We disagree because I believe the Milwaukee Bucks, even without Giannis Antetokounmpo, have the talent and the experience to beat the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young is averaging 32 and 6 this series on 47.9% shooting from the field. Now, I don't know what damn Atlanta Hawks game you watching, but Lou Williams can't imitate that. Not that average. He can have a game, but that's not what Lou Williams does. He can put up buckets, and we've seen him put up buckets in prolific fashion, but not in the last couple of years, not on this level. Trae Young is cat quick. He can pass the ball. He forces you to spread your defense out, opening up lanes for guys on the interior, not to mention creating open shots for other dudes, as opposed to just taking dudes off the dribble one-on-one or catching and shooting like Lou Williams does. Here's the reality of the situation, and this is why I continue to say he's the most important player, because without Trae Young, I don't believe the Hawks have a chance of winning this series. If Trae Young is there, you have a chance even with Giannis healthy. So imagine what chance you'd have without Giannis there. That's how I view it. I think with Middleton and Jrue Holiday, what they're supposed to be, Max, should be enough to beat the Hawks, which is a more accurate way to say that. What they're supposed to be with the Atlanta Hawks. With the Atlanta Hawks, it's all about Trae. If you're talking about getting to the NBA Finals, it's all about Trae.
What they're supposed to be, I agree with you. And that's what I'm challenging. You know, it's not like Collins had a great game last game, but he might be the third best player in the series. Like, you have some guys to choose from. Who's the third or fourth best player in the series? Brand name-wise, it's Middleton and Holiday. They've been around. They've each made at least one All-Star team. Middleton's made 2. But in fact, not just by reputation, but in fact, that has not always been the case, even in this series. And that's the problem. Giannis is the guy that makes the Bucks, oh, wait a minute, you got to deal with this. And now, hey, let's get a little contribution from Middleton. We can win this thing. But without Giannis, not only does Middleton have to show up every night, but Jrue Holiday has to take over running the offense. Now, I think they could do it. I thought they could, especially against the team in Atlanta. It's not like they're playing Brooklyn. But they got to do it. They haven't done it so far.
Yeah, but I think that what you're trying to say is that they have to do it, and I'm saying one of them has to do it. If one does it without the other, they could still beat the Hawks. If Trae Young ain't there to do it, they ain't winning. They're not winning.
I think your argument would be...
That's what I'm saying.
I think your argument would be a lot more persuasive, and I might have even agreed with it had I not just seen it in Game 4.
Well, you got to remember. Well, you got to remember, it's a couple of things that happen, right? The Milwaukee Bucks gave up their lead in the first half. And then you remember they came storming back, and Giannis was unstoppable. And you sort of got the impression, okay, they stole one from us in Game 1. We stomped them in Game 2. We came back and took Game 3 and reclaimed home court advantage. And not only that, Max Kellerman, even though I know this is not a popular thing to say, Max and Molly, but I'll say it for you anyway. Okay. I keep telling y'all, distractions matter. And when you're in a place like the ATL, and you have an off night, Now, it's one thing if you played and you got back-to-back and there's no nights off and then you're flying into that city the same day. But when you got time to hang out in places like the ATL, it might take you a little while to get your game together before you turn on the afterburners. Just trust me on this.
Also, an unpopular thing to say, but let's be honest, both teams need their